Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. Today's video is going to be based on this video request that we've had in the channel for a few months already, and this comes from Skyhawk SAU, and it says a TeamSpeak 6 tutorial would be great. Thanks for sharing. And this was posted in the TeamSpeak 3 video that was released previously. So now we're going to be talking about this new version of TeamSpeak that is coming out. So if you remember, you can go to teamspeak.com, and in here you can find details about the TeamSpeak application. I'm not gonna cover all of that again because it's basically the same. It's just a new version that they are releasing, but here you can find all the details. So once again, I make reference to that. We're gonna go into the Docker Hub repository, and we're gonna find this one that says TeamSpeak systems / TeamSpeak 6 server. It's the new image that is for the beta version of TeamSpeak 6, because right now TeamSpeak 6 is a beta. So this is early access. If you want to help the community develop this application even more, then it's even better. You can get it from here and then deploy it and see how it works for you. If you find any issues, go to their community and feel free to report any bugs or problems that you have so that they can continue improving this application. So this is the server. This is what runs the back end, and then we're going to connect a front end, which is for example a Windows application or a mobile application, to that server, and then we'll be able to use TeamSpeak version 6. Basically, if we scroll down here, it has a bunch of information. It gives us details. It shows us an example Docker compose file that we need to use to deploy the application. So basically everything that we need is going to be here, and you can get the same thing if we go into the TeamSpeak in GitHub. So that's on github.com/TeamSpeak/TeamSpeak6 -server, and that's where it gets you to this. And this is, it's a beta repository that contains the latest version of the new version of TeamSpeak, which is number 6, and it offers you early access to all the stuff. Here's where you can go and submit issues and bugs and all that, and it links back to their official website. It's currently version 6.0.0-beta 7, which is the latest one, which was released in October 21. So that's about 2-ish months ago. Not bad. And in here you can also get access to different ways to install it. And in here we get the Docker Compose, the same one that we saw in the Docker Hub. So just know that it is accessible there, and we're good with this. It's enough for us to start getting going. So let's look at the Docker Compose file quickly here. And if we see here, we need one folder to hold our data for the server. There's no other volume that we need to specify here. There are 3 ports that we have to open so that all the accessibility is there. One of them is not really necessary, honestly, because this is more for administrators that want to automate things. So if you're just a regular user, the only 2 ports here is what you're gonna need. And one of them is for the audio calls, basically the voice port, and then for file transfer. So for example, if you want to upload your avatar and things like that, you can do that with this. So knowing that, let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I expose this to ports. So this varies a lot. This varies per router that you have. Your ISP might have different routers. So I'm just going to show my case, which is I have a Fios from Verizon. So that's the router that I'm going to go into, and I'm going to show you what you have to do. But it's pretty similar in most of the routers. So you need to find the option for firewall, and then you do port forwarding. So let's get to that. Alright, so if you're going to your Fios router, you need to go into the administrative portal for it, and then once you log in, you're gonna look for something that says firewall. And inside the firewall section, you click on yes to make changes, and then you go where it says port forwarding here. And in here we have all the rules for ports that we want to open on a router so that we get traffic from the public internet, and then that gets sent to a device inside our local network, inside our home or business or wherever you are. So in here, with the thing that we're going to do is I'm going to select here my virtual NAS, which is my lab, or in other routers you can just specify the IP. So it already knows the IP of that device. And in here where it says application to forward, I'm going to say I want to customize ports. So which ports do I want to expose? In here you have several options. You can select only TCP, UDP, or both. I'm going to select both because it's kind of a mixed batch of the different things that we have here. So if I go back into the Docker Compose, it says that we need port 9987 on UDP and 30,033 on TCP. So let's grab those ports here, and what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 comma, and then we go back and grab the other port here, and then we paste that there. So basically you have first port, comma, second port. And then I'm going to open them both TCP and UDP, even though, you know, one of them is going to be only UDP and the other one is going to be TCP. It's just so I can put them all in one row. And once we have that, then we can say add. When we click add, it's going to add it here to the list of items that we have in the router. And then we can click apply to make sure that all those changes are applied and they are actually working. So now if we see here, we should see the 2 ports that I just added, which is this rule here that says 9987 and 30,033. And as you can see, it says anything on TCP for 9987 gets forwarded, anything UDP for 9987 gets forwarded, and anything TCP for 30,033 gets forwarded, and anything UDP on 30,033 gets forwarded. And it says it's active, so that means that right now those ports are being forwarded to my virtual NAS, which is my lab. So that's all that we need to do for port forwarding. Now with this, we should be able to get that traffic in the NAS. So this part is done. The next thing that we need to do is we're going to go into our NAS and we're going to create a folder structure, because like we said here, we need a folder to hold our data, and we need also a folder for our Docker Compose file that we're going to be using. So when you in the Synology interface have Container Manager enabled, you get this Docker folder created. In there I created the containers folder and the projects folder. So in the containers folder, I'm going to create a new one that is going to be named TeamSpeak 6, and I'm going to create that, and then inside that one I'm going to create another one named data, because that's what we need to hold their data for TeamSpeak 6. Then for the projects, this is where our Docker Compose files are going to live. I'm going to create another folder for TeamSpeak 6, and in there is going to be where our Docker Compose file is going to live. So that's all that we need to create when it comes to the folder structure. One for our Docker Compose file, and then in TeamSpeak, one for our data. So we're good there. Now that we have that, we can create a project. So we can come here into Container Manager, Project, Create, and then we can name these TeamSpeak 6. And then we're going to look for that path that we created in the Docker project, because this is where our Docker Compose file is going to live. And we're going to say, create a Docker Compose file. We're going to go here to the Docker Hub, and we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in here. And we're going to save it, but we're not going to execute it yet, right? Because we're going to be discussing what we have here. So let me click on next. Next, don't start the project, so make sure this is not checked. Click done. And now we have it here. We can go and click on TeamSpeak 6 and then go to the YAML, and we have a bigger screen that we can use for this. In here we can see that we're defining a service that is the TeamSpeak 6 server. So this is one container, and then in here is pointing to the image that we were just looking at, which is in Docker Hub. So everything is looking good. We're using the latest image, so the latest version with the latest updates are going to be there. On the container name, I'm going to rename this to TeamSpeak 6 server. And then the restart, I'm going to move it down a little bit. All right, let me get rid of the volumes because I'm going to map directly from the NAS. So here's the ports. This is very important. The left side is on the NAS. The right side is on the container. So here we're saying that port 9987 in the container is going to be exposed in the NAS in port 9987 on the IP of that NAS. And this port is for the voice, for your calls. This is very important. If you don't expose this port, you will not be able to start audio calls. And then file transfer is the other port that the container listens on 30,033, and we're going to expose it on the same port on the IP of the NAS. And this is important. If you don't have this port exposed, then you're not going to be able to upload files to the server, like for example your avatar. The web query port, I'm going to leave it commented out. We're not going to be using it, but I'm going to leave it on the file that I'm going to share, because you might want to do this. I don't know, but so I'm going to leave it there just in case. And then here for environment variables, the server basically only asks for this, which says basically accept the license automatically, so you don't have to accept it yourself. So we're going to leave that in there. And then we're going to map the volume. So the container has a folder path that is var ts server. We need to store all of that information somewhere in the NAS, so that if the container dies, we don't lose any of the configurations and stuff that is in there, all of that data. So that's why we provided a path to a folder in the NAS. So we need to go back here where we created that containers TeamSpeak 6 data. We're going to say, give me the properties of that, and I'm going to copy this path. This path is the location in the NAS. So what I'm telling this here is, on the left side is in the NAS, on the right side is the container path. So whatever files you have in the container in this path, I want you to save it in this folder in my NAS, this folder here that currently has nothing. So if the container dies, when we build up a new container, we're going to pass this folder in the NAS to the container, and this container is going to behave like the old one that died. So we don't have to reconfigure stuff from the very beginning. All right, and we're going to start this container and restart it unless we manually stop it ourselves. So that's all that we need in this Docker Compose file to get a TeamSpeak 6 server container running in our NAS. And since we have already exposed it through the router, all the stuff that comes from an outside connection should go directly to this container, because we are exposing those two ports through the router. Any connection for voice is going to come to our router, and then the router is going to say, okay, I need to forward this port, so I'm going to send it to the NAS machine on this port that I specified. And since that's the same port in the container, it's going to end up in the container. It doesn't have to be the same. Let me clarify that. This could be any number that you want, but the important thing is that the router points to that specific port in the NAS that you specify here. The container is going to be listening on a 9987. Let's say I wanted this to be 10,000. It could very well be 10,000, right? The difference is that if on the NAS I'm exposing it on 10,000, then the router has to send it to the NAS on port 10,000, and then the NAS gets that traffic on port 10,000 and then sends it to the container on port 9987. So I hope that was very clear, because that's very important. That's how you expose ports, and that's how you make sure that communication flows through. All right, so we have all this ready, so we should be able now to save this and build it. And this is going to pull the image, and it's going to extract that image, and then it's going to build that container for us. And once that container is up, we're going to check those logs to make sure that everything is good. We got the exit code, and we got the pop-up here, so it was built properly, so we're good here. We are having a problem here. I see that it stopped for some reason, so we need to see what is going on here. So we go into the container, we go here, and we click on logs, and then we see what is going on. Let's look at those logs and see what is happening. And as you can see, this is something that is very important. I wanted to highlight. I didn't put some variables that I usually put, because I wanted to show this, because I've gotten a lot of comments in the videos lately in YouTube asking me, oh, I'm having problems, the container's not starting, it tells me that I don't have permission and stuff. So I want to explain this very clearly so you can understand why this happens, right? You see that it's saying, you know, failed to create a log directory in the folder that we specified. So that's our data folder, so this is here. So you see nothing is being created. Why is nothing being created? Because the container runs as a specific user. It could be any random user that whoever created this image decided to give to it. The problem is that our NAS has permissions for our folders here. We need to make sure that the container runs as a user that has permission to write to these folders. So that's what happens when you get something like this that tells you permission denied or failed to create something. That is telling you that you have a permissions problem. So let's fix that. Let's go back here. Let's clear this. And let's make sure that we add those variables that we need to put usually so that the container runs properly. Alright, so now that we don't have a container and the project is not running, we can go to the YAML, we can go into the environment variables here, and let's create a new one that is the time zone. And in my case, I'm gonna put America, New York, because that is the time zone that is relevant to me. You put here whatever is relevant to you. Now, this is not a linuxserver.io image, so it's probably not going to use the PUID and GUID environment variables to set the user, so we're going to have to go with the other way. So here under the container name, we're going to put user, and in here we're going to put 1026 and 100. Why? When you create an account on the NAS, you get a number assigned to the user and an ID assigned to that user. So in my lab, I have a user with my name, and this is the number of the user ID, and this is the number of the group that my user belongs to, which is the users group. So you need to make sure that you grant a user to the container that has permission to read and write to these folders in your Docker directory. So you need to go, if you don't know the number, you can go into the NAS and you can log in with SSH, and then you can run the ID command, right? And that's going to give you these values that you need to put here, the user ID and the group. So in my case, this is 1026.100, so that should be good enough for me. So now that we have a user and I specified also the time zone, we should try to run this again and see how it behaves. So let's save this and build it. It's going to build it a lot faster because we already have the image, and let's see how it behaves when we monitor the logs. And as you can see, it immediately worked, and now it's not crashing like it was crashing before. So you can see in the logs here, it says, you know, the tables were created, and it has a login name and a password that you need to use to log into the server. You have an API key if you need it, and it, you know, this is the admin account that is showing us here that it was created. And if we see here, it updated the permissions on the data that it stored and all the files that it created, and everything is looking good so far. So if we go into the folder here, the data, refresh, we should see that containers, TeamSpeak 6, data now has a bunch of files. So that's perfect. That means that now our container is running as a user that does have permissions in the Synology interface to read and write and create folders in this directory. That's perfect. And as you can see, it's using a SQLite database for the to store the information for our server. And then in here we have our logs if we need to see the logs, and in here it'll store the files that it needs for the server. So good. We don't see anything crashing. Everything looks fine, and it says that the default license was sent, and we're good. In theory, the server is running right now, so we should be able to use these credentials here to connect to the server and then to be able to manage it. Alright, if we go back to the Docker Hub page, it says that in order for us to use a server, we need to go and download the client for TeamSpeak 6, and we can go into the downloads page here, and if we go there, it takes us here. I have a Windows machine, so I'm going to make sure that I'm on TeamSpeak 6, and I'm going to download that Windows executable here. So let's click on downloads, and then it takes us here to download. I'm going to download it here in my portable apps folder in my downloads directory, and now we should be able to run this to get this client installed in the machine. I'm going to run this installer, and here we go. It says it's the TeamSpeak installer, so we're going to click on next here. We're going to accept the terms, read them obviously, but for the sake of the video I'm going to skip that part. We're going to go next, and then how do you want to install it? You want it for all the users or for you? I'm going to leave it for myself, but that's up to you. Next, and then it says, do you want to put a shortcut on your desktop? That's up to you too. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to click on install, and this is going to install all the necessary files so that the client for TeamSpeak 6 runs in our machine. And now we can leave that checked here to launch it after we're done, and we click finish, and that should trigger the application to start. So let's give it a little bit of time here for it to start loading. All right, it is starting to load, and in here, that's the first thing that we have. We need to set this up so that we can connect to our server. It tells us that for now, for the beta, you need to have an account. So I don't have one, so I need to create one. So I'm going to click on create an account, and then in here we can do that part. So let me fill this information and create the account, and I'll be back after that. Alright, turns out that I did have an account before, so I'm just going to sign in with that account. And here we go. Now we need to read the terms and conditions and agree with this. For the sake of the video, I'm not going to do that right now, so I'm just going to accept it. And in here, we need to set up a recovery key. In my case, I don't have one, so I'm just going to go and recover without a key. And it says recover without your recovery key will cause loss of sync data. That is fine. I don't care. Confirm. So now it says there's a new recovery key that was generated, and you have to basically copy it and save it for the future. I'm not going to do that in this case because I'm not going to be probably using this. So I'm just going to go and continue after checking this box here. Alright, so now I can just finish. And here we go. The application has loaded, but we're not connected to anything in our personal server, so we need to fix that. Alright, this part is a little not intuitive. It's not nowhere here in the settings you have an option for that. It just in here where you see the bar here, it says connect. So basically you have to point to the IP, like the public IP where you're exposing this, right? Or if it's local, if it's like in a LAN that you have this, then it would be the local IP of the server. Alright, and this part is a little bit unintuitive because on the settings you do not see anything that talks about that. So in the bar here where you see, you can find that it says search and connect, right? So in my case, I have a domain that I got for free on changeip.com, and that's pointing to my router, and my router has the ports open, and it should allow the connection to the server. So I'm going to put that domain that I got for free that is pointing to my IP, which is jlpc.ns01.us, and when you select that, then it's going to try to connect, and you can see that it says connected. It gave me a weird error too, but it is connected to that server, as you can see with the green highlight here. Now, there are things that we need to understand here. Is if we go here, we can see information about the connection status. So this let us know if there's packet loss or anything like that. And if we click here, we see events for the server. And we are connected in here, so I should be able to just, do whatever I want here on my server. There's one thing though here with the server. So if we're in this server, we haven't claimed this server yet. So we need to claim that. So you see this thing on the top that says, is this your TeamSpeak server? If you click on yes here, then it says the ownership has not been claimed. Use a privileged key to become the administrator. So we need to put that key there that we find on the logs of our Docker container. So let's go back there really quickly and look for that privilege key. So this is probably this token that it's talking about. So let's copy this and make sure to go into the application, and then in here we're gonna remove all of this stuff and put that key. Okay, so here we go. Let me put it here, and then we're gonna copy this, and then we're gonna put it here as the key, and then we're gonna click here, and it's the notification went away. Now it recognizes that I own this server, and we're good. Should be fine now. This is the TeamSpeak server here. We see details about the server here regarding the file transfer, permissions, users, all of that. So you can manage all of this here. Currently, you're limited to 32 users on the beta. I'm the only user in the server, and there's only one channel. And it tells you information like, for example, how long the server has been up, when it was created, all of that, the domain that it is pointing to, which version we're running, and you can manage all of this stuff here. So for example, the permissions, you can come here and then manage the permissions. So you can create channel groups, server groups, and if we go back, we have the options here to ban users. So you have the option here to ban users. You have the privileged keys here. Obviously, you can create keys here. And then temporary passwords, if you need to create a temporary password, you can do that here. And then the server icons, this is where you would upload an image for the server. And the client list basically tells you, who's connected to the server and all of that. So basically, that is it. The server is running. If we go into a channel, we should be able to talk in here with text. And that gets moved into the channel. So any other person that joins the server and joins this channel should be able to communicate with other people. And the calls should also work because we have forwarded that port. So here my microphone is controlled and my sound is also controlled here. So everything should be working fine. I don't have any other user right now to test the audios, but it is working. This is how you get a TeamSpeak 6 server. This is a beta, remember, so there might be a lot of bugs in it still. Another thing that I found interesting here is you can also share your screen with people when you're talking here. So it kind of behaves like a Slack or a Mattermost server or like a Discord. So they're kind of going that route, making it look like one of those types of servers. And they're doing a pretty good job so far. So that's it. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Click the bell so you don't miss any of the videos that I upload. And leave me comments in the comment section below, because as you can see, a lot of my videos are based on things that you tell me that you want to see, and I then research it and provide guides so that you can get them running yourselves. And you should have noticed there was no ad on my video. That's on purpose. I'm not monetizing the channel, so YouTube is not bombarding you with ads, but that also means that I get zero money from the effort that I put into creating these videos, researching things, creating the guides and sharing them with you, and editing and all that. So if you like the content and you want to support me, there's a link in the description below where you can donate using PayPal. There's also a Bitcoin wallet address if you prefer to do it that way. It's really appreciated. It helps me to focus on the channel. It motivates me. And if we get to a point where we can make enough money to focus entirely on the channel, then the channel is gonna get more priority, more videos and all of that. So I'll see you in the next one. Take care.